The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of our tradecraft analysis of 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me. This episode also serves as our overall analysis of Roger Moore in the James Bond role. In part 1, we discussed on the villain, his henchmen, and the various other sub-characters that have created the situation that Bond needs to handle. If you missed out on part 1, there's a simple solution. You might want to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so that you can always stay caught up with us.
That's right, Dave. So now we are ready to tackle the heroes of the film, both James Bond and his tag-along Russian super spy, Triple X. Are they going to find a way to set aside their Cold War differences in order to save all of humanity? Spoiler alert, they do! But exactly how they do it, that's going to be the subject of this episode of Spies Like Us. Now let's talk about Agent Triple X a little bit. Major Anya Amasova. Starting with, I really loved the way they introduced her in this film.
Right.
The way they kind of try to trick you into thinking it's the guy in the bed that's Triple X. And then when she responds, I was like, okay, fuck yeah.
Right.
She's interesting because, you know, in our 1961 From Russia with Love, the Bond girl is a Russian agent, not an especially talented one, and her whole mission instructions just seem to be just do whatever James Bond says.
Right.
Not very interesting.
Right.
With Amasova, there's at least some nods. So it's like 16 years later, it's 1977. At least there's some nods to female empowerment in comparison. But at the end of the day, it's still like it's really shown its age as far as like she really just doesn't have hardly any agency. She doesn't really seem to be, at least, I mean, she seems to maybe be doing some stuff like on her own, but as soon as James Bond shows up, she's mostly just kind of following him around.
Yeah, they kind of developed her to be like a really good spy, you know, where she kind of like already knew how the sub worked. She knew what he drank, which, by the way, minus spy points on Bond. Like when she brings him the drinks later, like why he wouldn't think he might have been poisoned.
Yeah, don't drink that martini. Like
Yeah, right.
It's been in the hands of an enemy Russian agent with an opposing agenda.
Right.
Yeah,
but yeah, they kind of developed her as like this really good, capable, competent spy, and she really didn't do too much.
I mean, she gets her blow the cigarette gas into his face and steal the microfilm.
That was actually my number 3 best tradecraft. I was gonna wait till we got there, but when they get the film after the archaeological dig site thing where they get away from Jaws, she's just like playing the I'm so tired, and she's like getting her hand on, you know, she's kind of like seducing Bond a little bit, and he puts his hand up her skirt, and then she really just wanted a cigarette. And but it wasn't that in her cigarette. She had some sort of like knockout powder that she blew through the cigarette. So that's my number 3 best tradecraft was her seducing Bond, and because he had possession of the film and wasn't going to give it to her, so she just kind of seduces him a little bit and blows powder in his face and then takes off.
She gets to do that. Yeah, you just mentioned really quick, but about how she knew about the sub. You're talking about how she knows how the functions on his Lotus submarine car operate, and he says, "How did you know that? What the buttons did?" And she's like, "Oh, I stole the plans for this submarine 2 years ago."
Right.
That's nice. I love when she just straight decks the guy on the Liparus Bay that grabs her.
Right. When she like pulls out her hair and then like punches him out. Yeah, that was nice.
Mm-hmm. But you know, like when not Blofeld, Stromberg captures her, she doesn't make any attempt to escape.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's just kind of sitting there waiting for James to come and rescue her, which is, you know, lame on several levels. Mm-hmm. And Stromberg even said that, like, sorry that I had to restrain you, but you have a tendency to violence that has to be controlled. And it's like, seriously? I punched one guy in this entire movie.
Yeah, she hasn't really shown herself to be very violent.
What I don't like about her, and this is going to go back and forth with Bond as well. Like I said before, like, Bond should have interrogated her when he ran into her at the pyramids. I mean, something's up here. He can tell that she's an enemy, even if he doesn't know anything else about her. They're going to meet again pretty soon at the club, since they both know that Max Kalba has the microfilm. And when she shows up at the club, he knows who she is and says so. So even if he didn't know who she was at the pyramids, maybe he did a quick like call in to find out, which that'd be plus 5 points. But when she shows up there, he knows who she is and he says so. He just says like, hey, I know who you are. And she's pretty much eager to tripping all over herself to let him know that she knows who he is. And that's just huge minus 5 points for both of them, like, and that's what you do in these Bond films that makes them so like not really spy films is when, like Roger Moore said, he said, these movies are so silly. Like, I'm playing a secret agent that everybody knows my name and what my favorite drink is.
Yeah.
And, when you do know when you have figured out who the enemy agent is, you don't tell them, you sit back and you.
Yeah, that's our Spies Like Us rule number 1 is don't tell anybody that you know what you know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, for sure.
And they just start flexing on each other from the get-go. That's their first moment, the typical Bond where it's like a nice club, they're both dressed snazzy, and they're both kind of flirty with each other, and they just start flexing. Yeah, I'm a spy. I know everything about you. Yeah, well, I'm a spy, and I know everything about you.
And it's always the same with the villain, too. The villain, like, everybody just can waste no time in announcing to everyone around how cool they are.
Right.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. On the drinks thing, when he first, this is plus style points. When he first ordered her drink for her, I just thought he was being a douche.
Right.
But the fact she counters by ordering his drink, and that since we know James Bond, we know what his drink is, that says to us, like, oh, aha, she's read his file.
Right.
So plus style points for that, for sure. It's still minus 5 points because, again, like the less your enemy knows about what you know, the better.
Right.
And then just while we're in that part of it too, he even introduces himself as James Bond to Kalba, which, again, minus 5 points for the same reason that we've been hammering on here. At some point, the series does seem to have completely merited itself to just having that line, Bond, James Bond, in every film. Like, it just it just has to be there, even when it's stupid and a non-spy move. And that's my number 1 worst tradecraft. Might be my number 1 worst tradecraft of James Bond, period. Overall, it's just that that he doesn't use aliases. He kind of does here and there, but just overall, again, just seems to want to just, like you said, flex on people. And, and everyone does that shit. What else did we have for Triple X? I think we pretty much got her covered. You have anything?
The ruins, she like had a strap and didn't pull it out. Maybe she was hiding an ace. I don't know if that's a minus 5 points or plus 5 points, because we find out later she did have a gun in her purse. She didn't pull it out till Jaws almost had Bond, so maybe she was holding on to it like an ace up the sleeve and just playing the like damsel in distress. So maybe plus 5 points, but I remember you and I watching it. We're like, does she not have a gun?
Right. Oh yeah, that was one of my questions. But yeah, so I thought about this as well. And yeah, you could say maybe plus 5 points to not necessarily let Bond know that she's armed. But I say no, because he should assume, she's a Russian fucking secret agent.
Yeah.
He should assume that she's armed. And she should assume that he assumes that. So there's no reason to keep it a secret. Pull the gun out.
Right.
As soon as the fighting starts. And then we come to James Bond himself. I'll start with the British flag on the parachute.
Yeah.
When
that was great. Great way to open the movie.
I gotta admit, it made me feel like a little kid. Like instant rush of fuck yeah. I mean, for one thing too, that scene was amazingly well shot when he skis off the edge of the cliff and he's falling.
Sound goes completely silent.
And falling and falling and falling some more. And it just seems like it's going on forever. This shot is just so perfectly planned. And the payoff of when he pulls the chute out and it's got the Union Jack on it was just like such a fuck yeah moment.
Right.
I looked into it and found out that during a screening, one of the early screenings that they had in England, there was one that was attended by Prince Charles, and even Prince Charles like stood up, like the whole theater went nuts, and you know, royalty is not supposed to do that. You know what I mean?
No. British culture in general is supposed to be stoic.
Oh yeah,
from what I understand, and royalty should probably be extra stoic. And for them to stand up for that flag, that would go, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. It's minus spy points though for having your country's flag on your parachute if you're a fucking agent.
Right. Yeah, right.
But that's James Bond for you.
Yeah.
Let's compare. You know, we're coming in here. We're on high alert for, you know, having been mentally predisposed to like get ready for some cringy Bond sliminess, like we saw in From Russia with Love. The sliminess in here, I thought is a bit dialed back.
Quite a bit, actually.
You think so?
He seemed. I mean, he was still kind of a playboy. Like, I personally wouldn't have liked meeting a guy like that because I'd have been like, wow, this guy's a douche. But, I mean, I think it was a lot classier than Russia with Love.
Peak sliminess in this movie is the part with the Egyptian girl, but it's not like he went out and I don't know. It's not like he was making a play on her. He's just making a sleazy comment about her play on him. Right. And so... You know, it's cringy, but yeah, he just didn't bother me as much. There was a bit where he said, okay, so here he's at Stromberg's base, and they've noticed, and Amosov is posing as his wife. They notice the model of the Liparus, and the lady Naomi that's given them the tour or whatever says that you know, it was built like 9 months ago and it's the biggest tanker in the world. Yeah. And she says, you know, besides the Karl Marx, you mean? And he says something which seems really douchey. Again, it's kind of like the drink part where at first I was like, ooh. But then it kind of turned out, I think, to be cooler than it looked at first. You know, he says, "Oh, darling, it's remarkable the tidbits of information you store away." You know, like, yeah, you know, just like pat her on the head like she's fucking 12 or something.
Right. I think he might have been caught off guard or like threatened by how much she knew. Because, you know, it was probably like a diva moment for him, and I think that's what they were going for. Like his spotlight, she stole some of his spotlight, you know, and so he's just got to like kind of like save face or something. I think that's what they were going for.
You know, it'd be really nice if he actually was allowed to show himself feeling a little bit more threatened by a woman than they allow him to do in these films. I think they get that a lot better in the Craig films, which super looking forward to discussing sometime. But I thought about this scene again, and I realized, wait a second, no, this is actually good, because she just fucked up. we've seen her a few times. She gets at least a couple lines where she expresses like her pride in Mother Russia, and this is one of those. You know, she heard that it was, you know, they're calling it the biggest tanker in the world, and she's like, no, the Russians have the biggest tanker in the world. Why do you need to jump in like that? Right?
Right.
That's a little bit of like, you know, fucking up your cover. And I think his line is his little like covering for her, kind of chiding her, like saying like, hey, you know, ixnay on the Arl Marx A.
Yeah, definitely don't let them know that you know a lot about Russian subs.
Right, or that you're like super proud of and want to
Or
jump
Russian
in
tanker.
and just defend
Yeah.
Russia on the dick measuring contest of what? The biggest fucking tanker? Come on.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give him plus 5 points for that and not call it a slimy move. And I'll say it's my number 3 best tradecraft of the movie, covering for her mistake. Another thing that we're meant to expect from a James Bond film is, you know, his little quips that he makes right after he murders someone.
Right.
And I'm guessing, is it James Bond that invented that? You know, because I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is like, I think, the most famous for it.
Yeah.
But I don't know when it actually started, but it could have been James Bond that it was invented for. But he misses almost no opportunities to do these things. One of them though, like, is it's not a line, but just when he finds dead Kalba at the phone booth in the club, and he takes the out of order sign off of the phone booth and puts it
Oh
on
my
the
god,
guy.
yeah.
It's completely unnecessary. Like, did audiences laugh at that at the time? Did they think it was cool? It's not cool.
It seemed like that end of when we did the Man Who Knew Too Much 56, the end joke that just seemed like Jimmy Stewart wrote the joke, and that's how they ended the movie. It seems like one of those gags. They were like, we need a gag. Let's just have him put an out of order sign on this dead body.
Right. And I mean, it's kind of different. Like when you make the stupid quips, like after, like if some guy's been trying to kill you and you've been trying to kill them for like, you know, a bunch of time and it's all been really tense, like maybe you say something like kind of cowboyish, like at the end, just kind of as a like a adrenaline dump, you know, get the stress out of your system or something, you know.
Right.
You know, because maybe you were actually scared for your life, and now it's like, I live, and you feel good about living, and you feel good about standing over the body of your dead enemy. But this is just a dead guy he just found, you know?
Yeah.
Like making a joke out of that is just so wrongheaded, and they need to stop it, but I don't think they will.
No. Right.
He's a very quippy character in general.
Yeah.
I don't respond.
His one, like I said before, his one-line zingers like are relentless, and I rolled my eyes many times watching this film.
All the jokes he makes about when she's trying to get the car into gear or the truck.
Oh, and he's making the woman driver joke.
Yeah, he makes like 6 of them, and I feel like it's okay in the writers' room to come up with 6 of them, but you could leave 5 of them on the cutting room floor. 1 is enough.
Yeah.
And this weird thing where, like, you know, they're in threat of their lives, and she needs the keys, and he's just kind of dangling them in front of her, like, it's like it's like a fucking 8-year-old move.
Right.
Like,
right.
seriously, like elementary school crappiness.
Yeah.
Didn't like it. I like him a lot more. I like him a lot more when he's just when he's being serious. I think Roger Moore's just fine.
Yeah, the times where he was like actually serious in this film, he was actually bearable and kind of charming a little bit.
Yeah. No, I kind of like him. I just don't like his quips.
Yeah.
They don't really feel very natural.
Right.
I always say, you know, part of an actor's job, in my opinion, is to be an advocate for your character. And when you're given a line that doesn't feel right or feel natural, like you should raise your hand and say something and like have a discussion with the director about it. And I don't think Roger Moore ever had that conversation like once in his
Right.
career. I think he just read what was on the page, and if it was stupid, he just kind of just delivers it, gives his little kind of sideways eye roll, kind of wah wah, and
Right.
and moves along. More Bond tropes would be gadgets. I thought the gadgets. I'm not the hugest fan of Bond gadgets. I mean, submarine car.
No.
I'm actually like, fuck yeah, it's that kind of movie. Let's do it. I'm down with
But
submarine car.
when we did with From Russia with Love, one of the things that really bugged me was that just kind of Q had like this crystal ball foresight and gave him the exact gadgets he would need for the exact situations that he was going to come into.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of felt this one didn't do that. Like we had some cool gadgets, but they were more like in the opening skiing scene with the ski pole. Like if you're going out skiing, you're probably going to need a rifle, so let's hide a rifle in a ski pole, and he does. And so it seems like a lot of the gadgets are general. These might help for specific situations versus like in From Russia with Love, it was like every single gadget was made specifically for the exact specific situation that he was in.
Did you ever watch Knight Rider?
The TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Remember, like every episode would start with like them explaining this new feature that they'd added to Kit, and it would always be
Right.
like that feature was like what saved the day at the end of the episode, and then they pretty much
Right,
never,
yeah.
and then they would never use it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he knows in this case, like he knows he's going after some microfilms, so he has a little gadgety microfilm reader. He knows he's going to be doing a lot of underwater stuff, so he's got the submarine car and the what else has he got? He's got that little jet ski and a duffel bag kind of thing. It's not overdone. It's okay. Of course, we do see Q pulling off a lot of really, really silly stuff at the Egyptian base.
Oh yeah, those assassin gadgets were. Oh yeah, they were pretty silly. The spring was the best one. The giant spring under the chair to like toss the guy into the air to die. Yeah, they were pretty silly.
Those kind of
they were
things,
definitely
a giant spring like that. It kind of almost helps a little that the movie just kind of lets you know, like, hey, it's okay. We know that this is stupid stuff, but we're doing it. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Only once in the movie, and only briefly, does he use an alias, and that's when he goes to meet Stromberg. I couldn't tease out. See if you can help me. Like, I couldn't tease out exactly what the purpose of the meeting was. I mean, they had gotten a clue that Stromberg is involved, right? So maybe you do want to do your homework on him,
Right.
But it looks like he set himself up as a marine biologist.
And then they get an invitation from Stromberg to come to the station to see the fish. So I think that scene was mainly for Stromberg to figure out who he was. And that's when Jaws tells him that's Bond and Triple X.
Yeah, it seemed when Naomi came to get them, it seemed like it was like it's a pre-planned thing. Suggests that they had an appointment. But she also asks if he's on holiday, which suggests she doesn't know anything about like even what he's pretending to be there for. So I mean, I think we're supposed to think that Bond had, I mean, one case would be like Bond just goes and hangs out in a village that he knows Stromberg is watching for some reason,
Right.
and thinks that Stromberg will, say, hey, there's this marine biologist around. Like, maybe I should have a talk with him, which is weird. If Bond, like, as the marine biologist, like, reached out to Stromberg and said, like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about blah, blah, blah. Well, when they talk, they don't actually talk about anything. Bond doesn't get any information from Stromberg. on the plus side, I mean, they noticed the model of the super tanker. So, and like you said, the meeting's got a movie purpose for Stromberg to, like, when you say, like, okay, the purpose is for Stromberg to identify them, is that, like, are you saying that's Stromberg's motivation as a character? Like, that's what he wanted to do? Or are you just saying, like, the movie just wanted us to have that information set up?
I think it's either or whatever. Because right after they leave the station, Jaws comes up to Stromberg and goes, "Who are they?" Or was it Jaws?
Yeah, it's Jaws.
Yeah, and it's Bond. Oh, I guess he does talk. But he,
I think he just nods there.
Yeah, it's James Bond. Somebody tells Stromberg it's James Bond in Triple X.
Well,
and I think it was Jaws.
No, he just asks Jaws, like, is it the same two from Cairo? And Jaws nods, and then Stromberg says it's James Bond and Amasova. So he already knew who they were. So I don't know why he agreed to meet with them. I don't know what well, I guess, okay, so he suspected these two people might be James Bond and Amasova.
Right.
So that's why he took the meeting. But I don't know why James Bond wanted the meeting. Overall, the meeting is just entirely contrived, and
yeah.
It doesn't work mechanically. It just checks off a few boxes that the movie needs to check off for us.
Yeah, pretty much. But one of the things that did bother me was them going back to kind of like scope out, and that's when we get to see the car and submarine. We know he can track submarines. And they're going up to the station, so there's probably cameras and windows, and they get spotted and chased off and drive off. So that was kind of silly. But when they finally drive off, a motorcyclist comes after them and tries to, like, blow them up. And then a helicopter comes after them and tries to shoot them out. Then, there's several moments, like, it was a really big assassination attempt, a very loud one. And I kind of wanted to give my worst tradecraft number 2. It was a cool blowing up stuff scene and driving a car and screeching tires type of scene, but with a helicopter, it's those typical old helicopter scenes where, like, we got a helicopter and we're shooting stuff.
Well, there's a helicopter scene in every James Bond movie. Fun fact.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well, one, you had to have the helicopter, but I don't think the assassination attempt, it's very conspicuous and very loud. They could have had the bell lady who gave the invitation, like, slip into his room and poison them, or I don't know. Like, it just, I don't think any spy organization would attempt an assassination like this. It was very loud.
Right. Yeah, you're just playing into an action set piece for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned a minute ago about, like, how we know that Stromberg has submarine tracking technology,
right?
And maybe they should have been able to spot the little subcar snuggling up next to the base. I'm not sure about that because the car is so small, but they find so after all this, they figure their lead is, for some reason they figure their lead is the Liberus, that they saw the model of in his base. That's pretty big jump in logic right there, actually. But to their credit, James was interested enough to, like, check in with HQ about that, and he finds the very interesting fact that that ship is never seen in any port after it was launched 9 months ago, which is very strange.
Right.
So I guess that's why they look into it. I will say it should have been next to impossible to find that super tanker. The ocean is a very, very big place. Even with modern satellite imaging, if you don't even know where to start looking, like, good fucking luck.
Yeah. Right.
And when they do find it, what do? They try to sneak up on it in a submarine. When the first thing we established in this movie is that Stromberg can track submarines by satellites, minus 5 points.
Right.
They don't even recognize that his sub-tracking is an advantage that he has. So, obviously they get captured. Are they surprised when they get captured? Like, these other submarines just disappeared. You
It
don't know.
looks like they were surprised, so you can't even try and make it sound like they got caught on purpose. I don't think that's what the movie wants us to believe. I think the movie wants us to believe this was a good idea and they just get caught.
Yeah, and it wasn't a good idea, like at
Right.
all. Like the one thing you know is that Stromberg can find submarines and make them disappear. And
Yeah.
when disappear, you should assume that they got sunk, which
Yeah.
is not what you want. And speaking of which, like Q should have. Okay, when they first get the idea, the notion in their head that maybe someone can track submarines, and they're like, the Navy guys are like, no, that's impossible. And Q's like, no, that's not impossible. In fact, it's totally easy.
Right. That's right, yeah.
Which,
But I do want to finish Bond off with my number 2 best tradecraft. Um, the whole execution, I think, was really silly. Like they had to pull out like a what's it called? The thing that turns on the warhead.
the detonator.
The detonator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the crew of the giant tanker holds themselves up in the command room with like impenetrable walls, and Bond notices this weird ball camera thingy, and so his plan is to get a detonator out of one of the warheads in the armory, which we have a whole tense scene with, and then he's going to make a bomb and then ride that camera, and as it gets closer to one of the walls, he's going to toss a bomb and then unplugs the camera so that they're like, what the hell's going on? And then it blows up, and then they can all get into the command room. I liked him get his idea on like thinking on his feet of how are we going to get in the command room. But I do think a lot of it was silly. But yeah, that's what I'm going to mark as my number 2 best tradecraft.
Okay. Yeah, not a lot of tradecraft at all. Like in the last part of the movie, because once we get into action phase, like that's really all Bond movies do is they kind of toy around with the spy thing. They kind of brag about how cool of a spy James is, and then they just feed him into action scenes. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, or fortunately for me, the way depending on how you want to slice it, it's when we get to the Liparus, which is like pretty much like the last 45 minutes of the film is them being captured there, and then the villain getting away, and then this big huge battle to like liberate the submarines. This big huge battle was really good for
oh yeah,
like I don't even want to say just for its time. Like it was action packed.
Yeah.
Very elaborate. You've got hundreds of people in these shots, all doing stuff. They're all falling off of ledges and shooting each other and throwing grenades like constantly. You got little cars like being blown to the side and driving into the water and just all sorts of nice stuff. I would actually say that it was, when watching this movie, I don't know. Actually, let's do this in debriefing.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
Yeah, like I was saying, when I was watching this movie, there was the Union Jack parachute thing, which I still just, the rush of adrenaline I got off of that is almost indescribable. Just a childlike joy flooded my entire being, and I totally dug it. After that, I'm just sitting there taking notes and just basically being judgy about the film. It is about 2/3 of the way through, and it is kind of a long film, but it's about 2/3 of the way through. The submarine car thing kind of piqued my interest, and that moves pretty fast through some other action scenes and into when the Liparus captures the submarine, and then we see the interior there. That was the first time I started enjoying the movie, like literally enjoying, and that pretty much didn't stop all the way through to the end. And I would say at the end of the day, this is a movie that I was just doing for this podcast, blah blah, and for my own education as an armchair scholar of movies. But
yeah.
it won me over at the end. and I feel pretty okay about this movie. And it's the big battle. It's the Liparus. It's Jaws and the Liparus. Those are the stars of the film.
Jaws is definitely the best part.
To me.
Yeah.
But still, it is what it is. My final star rating is a 3. If it wasn't for that end of the movie, it was probably floating along at a 2.5. But satisfactory resolution. I could watch this again someday, but just not anytime soon.
I'm typically, I mean, like, not that you are, but I'm typically not really a big Bond fan just because it's more of an action film than a spy film. Um, and after that big parachute awesome moment, I don't think it really kept the tone going. Um, but like you said, Jaws is definitely the star of the film, so I kind of enjoyed him and watching him do what he does. And yeah, the action at the end was a lot of fun. But I think I'm going to stay consistent with my last Bond rating and give it a 2.
Okay.
I don't think I would want to watch this again. I do like we had said, Roger Moore is a lot less sleazier, and there's some moments that are kind of but for the most part, I was just kind of like, when's this going to be over? Like, because the only tradecraft we really got to look at was mostly at the beginning, and then it just like is like typical Bond stuff, and then there's a big action scene at the end. So, I like, just as a spy film fan, you know, I definitely wasn't that like interested in it, and just watching it as like a person that likes movies and stuff, I don't know, it didn't get me. So I'm going to stay consistent with my Russia with Love rating and give it a 2.
All right. Tradecraft review. My number 3 best tradecraft was him. It's subtle, but it's one of the best pieces. I think she did screw up when she blurted out about the Karl Marx, and that way of covering for her mistake, even though it seemed like it was very condescending.
Right.
It's actually kind of the right play there.
Yeah.
Number 2, the hitman at the house. I'm just so used to. I don't know why this has to get my number 2 best tradecraft. It's just I'm so conditioned to these bad movies, just having the bad guys just show up wherever they show up for no reason. But
yeah,
I was just happy that when I thought this one through, I was like, yeah, it does make sense. He would have been watching that house for anybody that came by. And my number 1 best, I'm not sure who did it or why, but when you think about it, sabotaging the microfilm that you're waving around in front of potential buyers is actually a good move. Number 1 best, and plus 5 points.
Most def. My number 3 best tradecraft was Triple X seducing Bond to blow the cigarette powder in his face so that she could get the microfilm. I thought that was really well played. My number 2 best tradecraft was Bond figuring out how to get through the command room, thinking on his feet real quick. And then my number 1 best tradecraft for sure was Jaws pretending not to know they were in the back of the van and took them to like some remote ruin spot, and then still pretended to not know that they were in the van, and then like led them into a place where he could like drop a big rock on them.
Yeah, that's not bad. It was easier to find bad tradecraft in this movie. The sub-tracking thing was a big one for me. Like I said, the one thing we know about this guy is he knows how to track submarines. He knows where you are at any moment if you're in a submarine. So don't go at him in a submarine. Number 2 worst is between the two of them is, like all these. I mean, yeah, I understand it's supposed to be sexy. It's supposed to be winky. That they are like, I love your term flexing on each other about how much they know about each other. But that's not what you should do as spies. Don't put that in a spy movie. And just my number 1 worst, Bond, James Bond. Stop introducing yourself, you dumb fuck.
Yeah. My number 3 worst tradecraft was the club owner not having guards anywhere, and him like getting called to a fake phone call and then getting killed with nobody seeing him. My number 2 worst tradecraft was the very conspicuous assassination with a motorcycle shooting like a rocket launcher sidecar, to like a car, like a clown car packed full of guys with guns, and then a giant helicopter with like massive machine guns shooting at this car on a road in the public. I think if you're going to assassinate 2 spies, you might want to be a little bit more quiet about it. My number 1 worst tradecraft was why Bond didn't follow Jaws into the tomb when he went after Fezzik. He could have saved the guy's life, got more information. It just didn't make sense. He just kind of hung out. I'm just going to stand here by this rock while the guy and this other guy go into a tomb. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it was silly. Park benches.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to go with the 1, mainly because I don't want to give 0.5 because I think it's a little bit more believable than Our Man Flint.
Wow. Well, we've got From Russia with Love was a 2.5. Not necessarily because of Bond stuff, but the villain stuff was okay. But yeah, I think you're right. I think this is actually less. This is more action and less even. There was
no villain tradecraft in this one. We gave it a 2.5 because of the villain in Russia with Love used tradecraft.
Yeah, this is in comparison. This is more action, less spy. I agree.
Yeah. Right.
What do we? Let's see. Well, our ones are Spies Like Us and Man Who Knew Too Little. I think we can do better than that.
Yeah, but then that puts it at La Femme Nikita.
Does it?
And I want to say La Femme Nikita's. I'm thinking you want to do 1.5, and I want to say La Femme Nikita was a little bit more tradecrafty.
I guess we're in a corner there. Yeah, I'll go with a 1. There's very little.
Yeah.
There's very little spying in this movie, and definitely nothing that you should take notes from.
Right? Yeah. No, this is not Intelligence 101 film.
Yeah, I mean, fun to talk about, but not a lot to talk about. I mean, you got your last 45 minutes of the movie is
blowing stuff up.
Yeah, blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like_us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. You can find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what will really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey, Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.